So I will call this meeting of the Westwood Finance and Warrant Commission to order. Grant permission to the Westwood Media Center to record the meeting. I don't think because we're Zoom, I have to ask if anyone else wants to record because I don't think they really can. And then we'll do the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States
of
of
America,
America and to the
and to the
republic
republic
for
for
which
which
it
it stands,
one
one
nation,
nation, under
under
God,
God,
indivisible,
indivisible, with
with
liberty
liberty
and
and
justice
justice
for all. Always interesting on Zoom with the delays.
Rearranged my office bill, so I had to go find my flag.
Allison, you want to do roll call
Bill Bruce,
here?
Mike Gay, Alex Yale,
Here.
Angela Hughes,
Here.
Christopher Marks, Chris Pareda,
Here.
Christine Cannon, George Lahan,
Here.
Margaret Driscoll,
Oh, sorry, here.
thank you, Mike Powers,
Here.
Paul Bamford,
Here.
Paula McLaughlin. Hang on. Okay. Ryan Sturma, Seth Fredrickson, Susan Flanagan Cahill will be joining us in just a moment. She is on and she will be promoted to panelist and be able to speak soon. That's it for me.
Sounds good. Marianne or Joe, turn it over to you a minute.
Yes, thank
Open the
you.
meeting.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mary Ann LeBlanc Cummings, on behalf of the Select Board, good evening, everyone. With me is my fellow member, Joe Previtera. I will call this meeting of the Select Board to order. Joe, would you please indicate your presence for the record?
here,
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair, for indulging us as we have some time-sensitive business to conduct tonight. First, as you are aware, Rob Gotti announced his resignation from the Select Board on February 3rd and submitted his formal written resignation to the town clerk on February 6th. As a result of that vacancy, the board needs to elect a new chair to replace Mr. Gotti. I will now entertain a motion to elect a new chair.
I'd be happy to move that you, Mary Ann LeBlanc Cummings, become the next chair as a result of the vacancy with Rob leaving.
Thank you, Joe. I will second that motion out of necessity. Roll call, Joe,
Aye.
and I vote aye as well. Second, in light of the vacancy on the Select Board, there needs to be an election to fill that vacancy for the remainder of Mr. Gotti's term, which is a period of 1 year. Fortunately, there is enough time to allow that election to go forward at the same time as our annual town election on April 28, 2026. I will now entertain a motion to place the vacant Select Board seat on the April 28, 2026 annual town election ballot.
I'd be happy to make that motion. But before I do, I'd like to thank Rob Gotti for his many years of service to the Westwood community. My motion would be to move that the Select Board accept the resignation of Select Board Chair Robert Gotti submitted to the Town Clerk February 6, 2026 that has resulted in a vacancy on the Westwood Select Board. I'd like to further move that the Select Board provide statutory notice to the Town Clerk pursuant to Mass General Laws, Chapter 41, Section 10, that the vacancy be filled at the annual town election, which with such notice provided no later than February 23rd, 2026. I'd like to further move the Select Board direct the Town Clerk to advertise the vacancy, place the office on the ballot, and accept the nomination papers in accordance with law. I further move that the ballot designation shall read Select Board 1-year term to fill a vacancy. Furthermore, I move that no appointment shall be made to fill the vacancy as Mass General Laws, Chapter 41, Section 10 require the vacancy to be filled by election. That is my motion, Mary Ann.
Thank you, Joe. I will second that out of necessity. Roll call. Joe?
Aye.
And I vote aye as well. I am advised that candidates wishing to pull papers for the seat may do so as early as tomorrow morning. People should consult the town website for information pertaining to the election and campaigning. And of course, the town clerk's office is always available to answer questions. I also want to echo Joe's thanks to Rob Gotti for his very significant public service to the town. I also want to announce that our next select board meeting on February 23rd will be a hybrid meeting, as we'd particularly like to give people the opportunity to meet our new town administrator, Connor Reed, in person. And we are planning that all of our meetings going forward will be hybrid meetings. And we are also working on plans for office hours in which residents can have more opportunities to meet directly with our town administrator and select board members. And we'll be discussing all of that along with the format of our meetings going forward at our next meeting. Lastly, I do have an announcement to make on behalf of the Westwood School Committee, which we just received a couple hours ago, and I want to share it with the community. The Westwood School Committee announces that Dory Parmalee has resigned from her position effective immediately. In her resignation letter, Dory shared that serving on the school committee has been one of the most meaningful roles she has held, second only to being a mother. It is in service of that primary role that she has made the decision to step down. We respect and support that decision fully. Dory has been a thoughtful, dedicated, and deeply committed advocate for the students, families, and staff of the Westwood Public Schools. Her perspective, care, and steady focus on what is best for children have been evident in every discussion and decision. We are grateful for the time, energy, and heart she has given to this community. On behalf of the school committee and the broader Westwood community, we thank Dory for her service and wish her and her family all the very best. Information about the process for filling the vacancy will be shared in accordance with town procedures in the coming days. That is the conclusion of the school committee statement, and on behalf of the select board, we wish to join the school committee in thanking Dory for her extraordinary volunteer service to the Westwood Public Schools and our town. And we want to wish Dory and her family all of the very best in the future. And with that, Mr. Chair, I will entertain a motion to adjourn the select board meeting.
So moved.
And I will second that out of necessity. Roll call, Joe.
Aye.
And I vote aye as well. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I will now turn your meeting back to you, and I will remain for any questions. Thank you.
Thank you both. Appreciate it. Next up is any public comments. So Allison, it's been a while since we've done Zoom. I think folks can put a comment in and then you can move them over if they want to speak. We'll allow 15 minutes for public comment, up to 3 minutes for each person. So I don't see anybody that's.
There's one question in the chat, but
Oh, I see.
do you want name and address?
Yes, we can. Oh, that's good. I forgot we're on Zoom. So we cannot respond or read any questions unless you have your name and address in there. All right, I don't see any other questions or hands.
Wait, hang on. Okay, you have two in the Q&A.
So William Sellis of 175 Canton Street is making the suggestion that the select board expand to 5 members. I think that's something for, is that Charter Commission or something like that? So I think that's something Mary Ann's on, obviously can bring back, but not something that's going to happen right away. But they can certainly share that with the next Charter Commission. Can you, I'm not going to read it. Can you appoint Ellen so she can speak?
Yes.
Hi there, my apologies. I'm actually in a public place, but I'm happy to read my comment if you prefer that. So I
Oh,
figured
sorry.
no,
I just
no
figured it'd
worries.
be easier.
Yeah, sure, totally fine. So I can just, oh, you removed it. All right, I had written it up. I'll go back to where I wrote it. Regarding the citizen petition article, I find the proposed removal of the language around written secret ballots in 138-17H, which currently reads as follows: secret ballot, an electronic vote or written ballot to be taken by a yes and no secret ballot, and in such manner as the moderator shall determine, may be ordered on any motion by a majority of voters present and voting to be problematic. Even before the FS1 vote in 2025, people have historically expressed discomfort with standing votes as there's no anonymity. If the clickers fail, the written secret ballot provision in 138-17H offers anonymous recourse. It only requires a motion, a second, and a simple majority vote. Rather than delete this provision, I'd advocate for increasing awareness in our community that the provision for a written ballot exists. Because to be frank, I actually didn't realize that it didn't require the moderator to suggest it until I read the citizen petition article and then read the language in the bylaw. So I actually would advocate against removing that option. That
Thank
was
you.
all.
I don't see any other questions. Obviously, if some come in, we can address them after.
Okay.
So I'm going to move along on our agenda here so I can try to keep everyone from staying too late on Zoom. Not really much from a chair's update perspective. Obviously, we're going to walk through our key agenda items here, the citizens petition, the warrant articles, the finances. At the end, I do want to discuss with the group the next few meetings, what they look like, warrant article assignments, some of that stuff. So we'll cover that towards the end. And then I think we can jump in now to our new business and the citizens petition first. So I see the petitioner. I can't hear her, but she's a panelist, right? I see her in the panelist spot. Would you like us to come back to you?
Yes.
Oh, there, I can hear
There we go.
you.
Must have heard it. Thanks for allowing me the time to present my article. I know I had sent out a pre-read, so I did have just a couple of slides to kind of synthesize everything related to the article that I'm presenting. So I'm not sure if I am able to present. I know I'm a panelist, So give me a minute and I'll share.
I think as a panelist, you can.
Just a minute. Here we go. Okay. So again, this is, can everyone see?
Yes, I can see it.
So again, just a few slides to synthesize the effort around making electronic voting the preferred method, which also then, just thinking of what the prior resident mentioned, which still allows for subsequent options if for some reason electronic voting does not work. The reason for this is really, again, to modernize how our town meetings are run, increase the efficiency of them, the accuracy of them, and the fairness. You know, town elections are an independent process, which are anonymous. And obviously at town meetings, that is not the case. Even though when electronic voting isn't used, which is the majority of the time that it has not been used since, even though the bylaws allow for it since 2019. There is a lot of subjectivity currently. Just in speaking to the town moderator, you know, he is the one that makes the determination of when an article should use electronic voting. And again, it's based on his determination of what he thinks might be, quote, contentious. I would argue that he doesn't have the full scope of all the voters of what they might think would be something that they want to vote privately on. In addition, there's other subjectivity around, you know, calling out loudly, the size of obviously the gym, and how close people are to the moderator. The other thing is that obviously we already own 2,000 of the electronic devices. They do work. They are on RFID, or radio frequency, not Wi-Fi. So there aren't kind of Wi-Fi connectivity issues. Other towns have proven success as well, as has our U.S. House of Representatives, which have a wide span of ages of our representatives. And again, just making sure it's reliable. These are some of the quotes from other towns around how they present the use of electronic voting. And they do really explicitly say we use electronic voting. It's our preferred method. And I think having that set the stage makes it a very sticky process, which obviously then they are repeatedly using it. It is reliable. And the voters also have adapted to it. So I really am asking for the Finance Committee's support in this article. I really do think that every vote should count, and the path to that is electronic voting, which is fast. It's, again, objective, it's anonymous, and it allows for, I think, improved faith and trust in the process of town meetings and the outcomes, rather than, you know, individuals feeling like they are have to be singled out in order to cast their vote on a particular article. I know I mentioned this in the, I'll stop sharing. I know I mentioned this in the pre-read as well, that the FS1 vote at the 2025 town meeting was really, it was really actually challenging for me to be there and to see what happened. And I had talked to the town moderator years ago when I had participated in a town meeting in the high school auditorium as well. And, you know, being there yelling out yay and nay in front of, you know, very, very close to committee members who were there, there to advocate for their article was, I think, very uncomfortable. And in the FS1 vote, you know, I was towards the back. I heard lots of people around me saying nay against the FS1 vote. And yet when it came to a standing vote, they didn't stand up. So their votes were not counted. And unfortunately, then it went to election. Obviously, it was voted down twice. And it's my feeling that at the town meeting, that vote, if it had been done electronically, it never would have gone to election. And so I think that was just unfortunate that these individuals felt that they were going to get singled out if they stood up. and they ended up not casting their votes. And I'm happy to entertain any questions or address concerns.
Do any of the FinCom members have questions? Raise your hand and I'll call on you. Simultaneously. I'll go George, then Chris.
This may be a dumb question, but does anybody actually think that this is a bad idea? I mean, it's more accurately reporting the number of people at town meeting. It's unless somebody's going to tell me that we can fix the electronic ballots, you know, vote early, vote often, vote curly. I mean, I'm assuming. I mean, is it what is the I understand all of the pros that you just presented. What's the negative?
I'm actually not sure. I just keep hearing the phrase, giving the town moderator the flexibility to conduct an efficient town meeting is
And
the
the
counter argument, but I don't know.
Efficiency is not using technology.
That's
Okay,
again,
I just didn't
what
know.
I've heard. I'm with you.
I'm not trying to debate you at all.
Yeah.
This kind of seems like a no-brainer, so I didn't know if I was missing something, which is very possible. All right, thanks, Bill.
Yep. Chris?
Yeah, thank you, Ms. Grasso, for providing the background information and the rationale. I found that very informative and helpful. Do you know whether or not this issue was raised at the last Charter Commission?
I don't know.
I'd have to go back into my notes as well, because I know that we went back and forth with the Charter Commission over a couple of years, and I don't recall whether this was particularly on there. Yes, I like using I like using the electronic ones, and I think that the town is just about over its getting used to it and working it into our habits. I know that we had an issue at one of our recent town meetings, but that was a human issue and not an electronic issue. So I think the town clerk has solved that. Do we know, Mike, I'll ask you if you happen to know, but if you don't, that's fine. Do you know if we collected all the ones that we gave out at this special town meeting that we just had?
I think Dottie's on.
Is she? I assume they were all collected.
Can you move her over?
Because
Allison?
you're right. I know we own a couple of thousand, but my concern is that over the course of several town meetings, they'll find their way into somebody's handbasket and not get returned. So we'll have to keep buying them. But nonetheless, I think it's conceptually it's a good idea. However, I think this is an issue that should be raised at the next Charter Commission, along with the broader issue of, and it was just mentioned in a comment earlier, increasing the size of our select board and maybe even moving to a non-open town meeting. I mean, people have described that the open town meeting is the purest form of democracy. Well, that means standing up and voting the way you want to vote in spite of what your neighbor is doing. I think this is an important issue, but I think it needs to be discussed more thoroughly at a Charter Commission and then presented by the Charter Commission. And then maybe some of the language can be teased out accordingly. There may be some issues there with the proposed language that needs to be teased a little bit as well.
Yeah, Chris Dottie's here.
Dottie, did we collect all the electronic voting?
Yes.
What you call it? We did. Okay, that's good.
every meeting we take inventory, and probably over the years that we've used them, we're missing one or two, and we knew who those people were. We called them and we got them back. So there's really not, we really do a great deal of checking and keeping inventory. So, because they are very expensive and we don't want to lose them.
Right. Okay. Well, thank you very much for filling me in on that, and I'm gratified to hear that. So, so I think it's a good idea, but I don't think this town meeting coming up is the right time for it, and we need some more discussion on it.
Chris, answer one more question. So it was not brought up in the Charter Review Committee because it's already in the bylaws. This was something when we did the bylaws review in 2010, it was discussed. And then in 2015, I believe, is when we brought a bylaw to town meeting and it added electronic voting. So it was at the discretion of the moderator, but it is in there. If we didn't have it that way, for every meeting, we'd have to have town meeting vote to approve using the electronic voting. But we did put it in our bylaws.
Thank you very much for that clarification.
Thank you,
You're
Dottie. And then how many, you might not have this information, but how many towns in the state of Massachusetts compared to the total number use electronic voting?
So it's a little bit of a complex answer. So probably, I saw it from another one, probably 50 have it in their bylaws as an option.
Okay.
Even Wayland, who was the first to start using it and has been using it since 2011, they still have it as an option, right? Up to the town moderator's discretion. I think that the difference is that they're consistently using it. And there isn't a debate. Same with Weston. When you look at their town procedures, even though the bylaws allow for the flexibility, all of their town meeting procedures pretty much say, we use electronic voting. You're going to be given a handset. This is the preferred method. So it's a tricky question because a lot of them have it just like we have. But I think it then becomes, how is it applied in practice? And is it used in practice?
So based on what you said, it sounds like no other town is mandating it. Like it sounds like the other towns are doing what we're doing today, which is leaving it up to the moderator. So I think what I would understand, and maybe some of the other FinCom members too, is, who is actually doing what you're proposing and mandating this and taking that away from the moderator's discretion.
So Sudbury does said the preference is to use the electronic voting system, and that's how the revised bylaws would be written, right? It's preferred electronic, and then obviously I think it goes to voice count, and then it goes to standing count. I'm trying to see the other ones that have it. I did do a lot of research. A lot of them actually still do have it as an option, like Weston and Wayland still do. But again, they're consistently doing it. So it doesn't sound like they've had to change their bylaws. And I think it frankly is because it's up to the discretion of a single individual. And there is a preference, I think, from the town moderator not to use it. Again, except for these types of, quote, contentious issues.
And then what about the comment that Ellen had made in the public section about the deletion of the provisions around secret ballot in the language here? Is that something you need to relook at, or is that part of it? Because I think just, I know this is hard to do this, and we ask a lot of questions, and we're just kind of understanding it now, and you'll be back again, and we have our meeting. We have our public meeting on the 24th, and then we have our other meeting in March. There's plenty of time to come back with answers and questions, but I would make sure by the time you get to our March 25th meeting that you're really clear on the language you want to use and what it is, because that's what we vote on. And so language being wrong or not lining up can easily get something voted up or down. So that would just be my advice around the wording in some of these comments, is make sure it's what your intent is.
Okay. Okay. Yep. That's totally fine.
Any other questions from anyone else? Okay. Well, thank you. Appreciate you coming to present. Thanks for showing a few slides to make it easy on us. And I'm sure we'll see you again in some of
Right.
our upcoming meetings.
Sounds good. Thank you very much for having me.
Thank you. Next up, Connor, Molly, Stephanie.
I'm gonna share my screen. Give me one moment. There. Come on, be big. There we go. And I'm actually gonna turn it to Mary Ann to just kick us off, and then we'll hand it over to Connor.
Thank you, Molly. Once again, good evening, everyone. We are pleased to be here to present the select board articles to you, and I'm very pleased to introduce formally Connor Reed, our new town administrator, to all of you. We are thrilled to have Connor with us with his vast experience, and I will turn this over to Connor and Stephanie McManus.
Sure. Thanks, Marianne. I think Molly had this slide, but I'm happy to jump in. We have a handful of articles tonight to review with the Finance Committee. Also want to say I'm happy to be here. Look forward to meeting all of you in person at your next meeting, but really excited to be part of the team here in Westwood. Appreciate being part of a meeting tonight, and hopefully I'm able to be constructive on day 8 on the job. So try to get up to speed as quick as we could. But we have budget articles tonight that Finance Director is going to take the lead on. Deputy Administrator Fitzpatrick will go through the miscellaneous articles, and they were charitable enough to give me the 3 select board articles. So, Molly, I don't know if we're starting with the select board articles, but
Give me a second. All right, go ahead.
there we go. So, Bill, this is your meeting. I don't know what your cadence is. You want me to just go through all 3 because they're pretty quick, or how would you like them to be presented?
I think given I would go one by one so folks can ask questions
Sure.
on some of these, since there's
Great.
only a few.
Great, thank you. So Select Board Article 1 is transfer of land. It is the now former Deerfield School. It was to see if the town will vote to accept the transfer of 72 Deerfield Ave from the school committee to the Select Board. My understanding is that this is in concurrence with a vote taken by the school committee, I believe in December, to transfer care and custody to the town.
And then that would be on what 7/1 effectively at the start of the next fiscal year if it passed town meeting. Would that be the timing of the transfer?
That's my understanding, yes.
Okay. I don't see any hands, so we'll keep going. You guys raise your hands if you want to. Oh, there's George.
What's the why? I mean, why does the select board want it? What's gonna be the use of it for the town? Does the school committee, I don't know if there's anybody on the call that can answer school committee questions, but, school committee's transferring it to the select board, so it would effectively fall under the select board budget, and they would pay for all the operating expense. But what's the goal? What's the use of the building? Are they gonna turn it into a rec center? Office space for the select board? I mean, what are we gonna do with it?
That was a lot of questions. That wasn't one question.
Sorry, but I mean,
I don't.
you're right. You're right. I apologize.
I don't know if Mary Ann wants to comment at all. Might be too early for some of that, but I'll defer.
I appreciate the question. The school committee no longer has the use for it, so this is the procedure. Once schools do not have use, it would revert to the town, and the use of it is currently under discussion. It is being discussed, I know, by the FS1 committee, which
So
is
it's in contention for the fire station?
it is a site that is being discussed, yes. It's being discussed, and it will also fall within the long-range planning for the town in terms of what we will do with it. So there is no immediate plan, is the short answer. But obviously, we need to come together and decide what is going to be the best use for the parcel.
I would also just note that there are several departments and organizations currently operating out of the Deerfield. The town's IT department operates out of there. Recreation runs a good number of programs out of there. And then Westwood Media Center is also operating out of the Deerfield currently.
You good now for George?
Thank you.
Okay. Christine and then Paul.
Do we expect this to have an impact on the operating budget for, I guess that would be, is that going to be the fiscal year 28, assuming the transfer happens and it occurs sometime next year? Would it be fiscal year 28 maybe? Do we know what that, are we anticipating what that impact might look like, or is it going to be net?
Well, I think, and Stephanie or Molly can chime in, but today we're, from a town perspective, we're paying to operate the building, but it's the schools paying for it. And that'll essentially transfer over to the town side of so it'll transfer from the school side of the ledger to the municipal side of the ledger in terms of the operating costs, but it still rolls up to the same overall town budget, right? So it's just moving from one bucket to the other, the operating expense. It doesn't have an impact on the overall budget unless there's a change of use of the building. But I don't know, Molly or Stephanie, if you'd add anything else.
Yeah, no, I would just say all you would know if you notice in the municipal budget book, each municipal building is laid out with its own cost center because the Deerfield is not currently in the care, custody, and control. It's not listed there, but like Bill said, it would just sort of move from one side to the other.
So just anticipating a net.
Yeah. Paul?
Yes. So is this simply, and maybe it's a question for Mary Ann, is this simply a procedural move? Are there any other ramifications or issues we need to be thinking about? Or is it really, again, just a procedural move so that we can think about what the longer term usage and how this fits into any type of long range planning?
That's right. That's
Okay.
right.
And Bill, if I could just add to that, not experience of Westwood, obviously, given my second week status here, but it is not uncommon in communities once a school is vacated that it is transferred to the select board. That does open up opportunities for long-term planning as far as reuse or disposition, if that's what the town decides is appropriate after getting authorization from town meeting. So.
Any other questions? Thank you. Connor, you can keep going.
Great. Article 2, Select Board Article 2 is transfer of land via Obed Baker House. I hope I said that right. For wetlands, this is to see if the town will vote to accept the donation of about 20,000 square feet, which consists primarily of wetland area located at 909 High Street. If you look at the map shown here on the slide, you'll see a red property line through that green kind of blob, which is the wetlands. The majority of that wetland area, it's my understanding, is already owned by the town, and this would complete the wetland puzzle, so to speak, and have that be a contiguous wetland resource owned by the town.
Alex?
Who owns this now?
The Obed Baker property was part of an RFP that went out several years ago, and it was sold to Todd Sullivan.
And so this property, this 20,000 square feet currently is owned by him and the developing project?
Yes.
Okay. I'm just curious, what's the benefit of the town to take this parcel over?
So Alex, my understanding is that this article would be consistent with a September vote of the select board last year for a modification to the phasing of the construction on site, and that the benefit here, and Marianne, correct me if I'm wrong, would be just having town control over the contiguous complete wetland resource area, which is my understanding has been restored as part of this project for the benefit of its environmental preservation.
And is there any foreseeable cost in owning this land in terms of maintenance or upkeep or anything related? And do we know that, is there any lost tax revenue in taking over this parcel?
I do not have that information, but I can find it. I'll report back to you.
Thanks, Connor.
Thank you. Christine?
When you refer to this as being transferred, is that to be assumed that this is essentially free, that this land is being donated in a sense, or is there a cost affiliated with the acquisition?
It's a donation, so the town would not be paying. We sold the land to the developer, so we received payment from it, and then are accepting a little under 21,000 square feet back at no cost.
Why would somebody donate it to us at no cost?
Tax write-off?
Again, George, my understanding, and someone who was here for that meeting, feel free to jump in if I'm incorrect, was that it was part of a broader modification to the development plan with the board.
That's my understanding as well. So he was requesting a modification for a different component of the project. And so this was a response to that. I know Pat is on the call and has been more involved in it if he has any more comment.
I can't speak for Mr. Sullivan, but I suspect that the wetlands are of no use to the developer. You can't develop anywhere near them. You can't develop in them. So he'll have gotten what he wants done on the project, and turning the wetlands over to the town allows the town to manage and control the wetlands. I think it's a twofer for him that way, but I can't speak for him.
And what's the benefit to the town of having the wetlands? Besides an added cost to maintenance it?
Well, I don't really think it costs much to maintain a wetlands, provided you follow the regulations. Where you get in trouble in a wetlands is if if you're developing in them or you're dumping in them. This particular wetland, Mr. Sullivan cleaned it out. There was some tremendous dumping going on in there through the years, and he managed to clean it out. And he also managed, my understanding, is to get rid of the invasive species that were there properly. So he's kind of cleaned it up, and he's looking for the select board, I think, to take it over and manage it going forward. But again, I don't speak for him or represent him.
Thanks, Pat. I think we can keep going. I don't see any other questions right now.
Great. And then Select Board Article 3, this is general bylaw housekeeping amendments. The first bullet you see here is just updating the nomenclature in one area that is still referring to Board of Selectmen to match the current language of Select Board. And then the second and third bullets are to just update the reference to precincts. My understanding is that through 2020 redistricting, Westwood moved from 4 to 5 precincts. And so this is just making that clean. It doesn't actually change the number of precincts. It just makes the language match what you have.
Sounds good. Not see any hands. Seems like just general housekeeping stuff.
So I just wanted to touch on the 12 miscellaneous articles. As FinCom knows, the town typically reserves a number of articles for open projects, things that we aren't quite ready to move forward with or to reserve in case something were to come up. So currently the town has 12 miscellaneous articles. This includes things this year like potential street acceptances where the I's haven't been dotted and the T's haven't been crossed. We're not 100% sure we'll be moving forward with them at this town meeting. The FS1 steering committee, the select board asked that group to come forward with a recommendation for this town meeting, not knowing what that recommendation might be and wanting to cover all of our bases. We reserved about 5 for anything that the FS1 steering committee could be looking to do. So those are, some examples of what those 12 would include. We'll be going to the select board again on February 23rd and March 9th. And so some of these will either be moved to select board articles or removed in their entirety if they won't be moving forward for this town meeting. And we'll be keeping FinCom up to date as articles drop off or move forward.
Excellent. Thank you.
And if there's any other general questions, I'll stop sharing my screen.
Any other questions from anyone?
Okay.
All right.
With that, I'm going to turn it over to Stephanie McManus, who's going to give an update on the budget.
Thanks, Molly. So I think I know a lot of you, but for those I don't know, I'm Stephanie McManus. I'm the town's finance director. Around this time each year, I come in before the committee and go through the budget. So this will be a little bit different from what Connor and Molly just did. Instead of going article by article, I present it as an overall budget. And all that information and pieces and numbers are sort of scattered throughout the individual 13 budget articles. And then I'll come back to you in March and go by article in more detail then. I am going to share my screen too. 1 minute. Hoping you can see that okay. All right, let me know if you can't.
We can see
All
it.
right, thank you. So there's quite a bit of information to go through tonight. Some of the material could be a little dense. So I'm going to start off by saying thank you for being here and bearing with me and listening as we walk through it. And I'm always happy to take questions on any of this.
Yeah, if you guys have questions, just keep raising your hands and then I'll let Stephanie know and she can hit on it.
Thanks, Bill.
Go through stuff.
So tonight specifically, I'm going through the FY27 municipal budget as well as what we call the overall budget as they both stand right now in the process. So we have produced and sent out the municipal budget book, and the following presentation goes over information included in that document. And then what we call the overall budget book will be distributed later this month. So we always say the budget, and in particular FY27 budget, is a comprehensive financial plan that balances many competing needs. We're constantly weighing service levels, capital investment, reserves, long-term liabilities, and the tax bill impact. The goal is to maintain high quality services while protecting the town's long-term financial stability and affordability for the residents. So this graphic shows the annual town budget cycle. So although town meeting votes the budget in May, the budget really is a continuous process. So planning, forecasting, policy decisions occur year-round. This lead time is critical, especially when dealing with fixed costs and multi-year financial obligations. So each department submits requests based on their current needs. That happens in August on the capital side and November on the operating side. These are thoroughly reviewed, weighted against any available resources, assessed for sustainability. And then at that same time, we begin initial projections on the revenue side, such as taxation, local receipts, and then on the overall expense side, such as fixed costs. We then start to receive updates on outside assessments, pension, health insurance, and other revenue sources such as state aid. So all this information comes together and then is reviewed internally at budget steering meetings, which a member of FinCom is present at, school committee, select board, and the town administrator and the school's finance department, finance director and superintendent. It's then presented to the select board at their meetings in December through March, which we have a lot of meetings that I present at, and they bear with me through those too. The financial articles then go through a review process with FinCom, are presented at your public hearings, and then voted on by FinCom and ultimately voted on by town meeting in May. So once adopted, all of these articles fund the next budget cycle starting July 1. The budget presented and passed at town meeting must be balanced, ensuring that the town does not spend more than it receives. Fixed and shared costs such as pensions, health insurance, and debt are non-discretionary and apply to both town and school employees. And any volatility in those costs must be absorbed within Proposition 2.5 limits, which I can go into a little bit more detail later on in the slide. The challenge each year is managing the pressures while maintaining core services. So a balanced budget in short means that the proposed expenditures do not exceed the anticipated revenues for the upcoming fiscal year. So, and the current budget, which I'll be going through tonight, is balanced. So the outline for tonight, I'll be reviewing the proposed FY27 municipal budget, including services included in that budget and the highlighted changes to salary expenses. I'll also cover the overall operating budget, including schools, debt, and fixed costs. One thing to note, I'll say this a couple of times throughout the presentation, the school budget is still subject to final discussions, so some figures on that may change. All right, so first up, the municipal budget. This budget sits within the operating budget and encompasses a wide range of services. There are many different needs in the community, and the goal is to provide for those needs, including primary DPW services, maintenance of roads, infrastructures, public safety services, police and fire response. It provides programs and services for all ages, think COA, library, recreation. There are then the state required regulatory functions such as zoning, health department, licensing, veterans, and then the administrative departments that really support all these other areas, most of which are located in town hall. The municipal budget funds day-to-day services residents rely on across all ages and departments. And just to note, public safety and public works together make up about 2/3 of the overall municipal budget. So the total for this is just over 27.4 million. And here's just a quick breakdown by department or area for a total increase of 5.1% over FY26. You'll see a few notes at the bottom. And as I'll discuss in the next few slides as well, the select board has included two new firefighter positions to the FY27 budget. That increase, the cost for those of $278,000 is being funded with ambulance receipts. Without these added positions, the public safety budget would be a total increase of 4.6%, and the total municipal overall budget would be an increase of 4%. The largest component of the municipal budget is staffing. So our programming is done through our staff. 84% of the budget is salaries, and a large portion of that is spent on our DPW frontline workers, police officers, and firefighters. So this means contractual salary obligations really drive the majority of our annual increases. So the total increase of that budget of about 1.33 million over about 1.28 million of that, or 97%, is related to salaries. These are primarily contractual obligations, as I said, which we call COLA and step increases. We offset a portion of these through, specifically this year in the FY27 budget, through reductions in part-time support and outside professional services. So tried to balance those increases with cuts we can make anywhere else. Two notable changes are the addition of 2 firefighters, which I'll go through in more detail in the next couple of slides, and then the transfer of the GIS manager from the IT department to the Department of Community and Economic Development. That was just a shift. They're now reporting to a new person. So in case you see a significant increase in that Community and Economic Development budget, it's just because that position is now housed there. On the expense side, the increase is mainly comprised of due to increasing the electric budget for the addition of electric vehicle chargers at the police station. So that was about $20,000. And then the increase to the town clerk expenses for the upcoming election cycle, which includes a state primary and state election, which is usual. That budget sort of goes up and down depending on how many elections are going to be in the upcoming year. And that is about 10,000.
Stephanie, Alex had a
Yep.
had a question.
Oh, sorry, Alex, go ahead.
Nope, I was just waiting for.
That's okay, no problem. I didn't. Is it okay to ask questions now, or do we want to wait until a break point, Bill? I'm fine either way.
You can ask questions now.
Okay. It's about the addition of 2 firefighters being funded through ambulance receipts. I know as a principle of conservative financial spending, we do not typically fund ongoing and recurring expenses with variable sources of income. I know that every year we have ambulance receipts, so there's probably a dependable dollar amount there, and then some years that may fluctuate by some percentage. But wouldn't this be considered against our principles by funding these, continuous and recurring positions with a variable expense or variable income?
No, I really appreciate that. And I know I talk a lot about this, especially with our financial policies. Do you mind if I do the next couple of slides and then come back to that? We have some analysis on what it would sort of look like from the funding piece.
No problem.
Is that okay?
Yeah, I'll have Stephanie go through that, and then Alex will see if it answered it, and then I'll get to you,
Yep.
Chris and Paul.
I'll do about
at 2 or 3 slides, I think. Go
four
through
more
it.
slides, and then I'll come back. I'll stop. We'll take a break,
Okay.
and then I'll come back. All right.
Sure.
So the select board has included in this budget 2 firefighter positions, as I said. Importantly, this decision does not increase the tax levy side. Instead, as Alex just pointed out, which is correct, the funding source is ambulance receipts, which are generated by the fire department for ambulance-related services. So Westwood has historically treated ambulance receipts different from tax revenue. Excuse me, these revenues are kept separate and used only to support the cost of delivering ambulance services. So important to note, the rates were increased this year, and then also, last year, and then also increased recently at the February 3rd select board meeting. So as rates go up, obviously revenue coming in increases, and call volume has also been steadily increasing over the last 4 years. So this is just a quick snapshot of analysis that was done on the funding approach. For FY27, projected ambulance receipts are sufficient to support the cost of 2 additional firefighters. I won't go into too much detail on what that box with all the analysis means, but it was just a look back 10 years on actuals that have come in, and then a projection 10 years out with some notes at the bottom, just to highlight certain assumptions. Because all Westwood firefighters provide ambulance services, we consider this an appropriate use of these funds, and the funds will allow the positions to be included in the operating budget without increasing the taxation side. So this decision supports the fire department operations while maintaining the town's overall fiscal framework. It does not establish long-term staffing minimum. Here's just a quick breakdown of the current staffing levy, because I know this has come up, especially with the FS1 project a number of times. I just want to make clear what it would look like with the additional 2 positions. So the current model maintains a minimum staffing level of 9 per shift, with scheduled staffing varying. The proposed model brings us to all 4 shifts to 11 scheduled firefighters, but minimum staffing does not change. So it'd still be at that 9 minimum. But it does improve consistency across the shifts. And so I'll stop there for a minute, because that's sort of the end of that portion of it. I'm happy to take questions. So Alex, want to come back to you again and just see, does that sort of answer what you're getting at? And I fully understand, because we go through this a lot with our financial policies, right? That one-time revenues are supposed to be for one-time expenses. There has been, we do fund some of the expenses in what we call Appendix D in the operating budget already for ambulance receipts. There's a line for the fire department budget for supplies related to the ambulance that partially is funded with the ambulance receipts. Also, the collector's office, if you've ever noticed on the right-hand side of Appendix D, they do the billing services. So we supplement that budget partially with ambulance receipts as well.
Yeah, and I appreciate the context and the added information. I'm sort of also in a sense parroting back the guidance you've shared with us in terms of looking to take one-time or non-recurring income and spend it on recurring functions. So I guess
Yes.
it sort of feels to me like we are somewhat changing our position on this. I hear you on the fact that we've increased rates and therefore income is going to increase. But if previous to this, those funds were used for ambulance operations, billing, those were all used on somewhat variable expenses, right? The more our ambulance operates, the more equipment restock, the more fuel we use, the more, we might need to replace ambulances due to mileage accrual, things like that. This sort of still feels to me like we're using a variable income source for a continuous and undoubtedly an increasing expense year over year with COLA, with contracts, with health insurance costs, with equipment costs, et cetera, et cetera. I'm afraid that we are changing our tune to an extent on this type of move. And I think that when we need a new ambulance, for example, I think previously we would have said, hey, we need a new ambulance, but great, this is going to be covered by ambulance receipts. We might be in a position 3 years from now to say, hey, we need a new ambulance and we can't cover it like we used to because those dollars are being spent on increased staffing needs. So this feels like a little bit of a slippery slope and a little bit of a, going against what we typically go for in terms of spending dollars like this. Because I think the same can be said for, meals and hotel tax, right? That's a variable income account. But one could argue that it's going to be at least X amount every year and potentially growing as we add new businesses or new hotels and things like that. So I think that's still a general concern here, especially with hiring people and the cost of people are only increasing year over year for many reasons.
Yeah, and you're always so thoughtful. I appreciate that. Oh, sorry, Molly. Can I say one quick thing and then turn it over to you if you don't?
Yeah.
Two things that you're completely valid with your points, but two things I'll just point out that might help clarify something is in this 10-year cost out for the transfer out section here. Molly worked with the fire chief. Thank you, Molly, to have a 10-year out plan of when they're going to be purchasing ambulances and heavier equipment, and included in this assumption are costs for all those things. So that was part of the analysis. And Molly, do you have anything you want to add?
Yeah, I mean, that was the main part I was going to say is that, when we were asked by the select board to look into this, wanting to take an uber conservative approach, exactly to your point, wanting to make sure that we were not overselling this and wanting to make sure we could use this funds to buy the important capital that we've historically been purchasing from this. And so when you look at the receipts portion of this, you'll see it's, 1.28 the whole way down. We anticipate that to go up. The average last 10 years has gone up about 8%, but assuming a 0% increase in growth, and then the transfers out, assuming, a certain amount to cover Article 2 overtime, the existing amounts for the collector's office for the IT software, and the addition of, if you see a number that starts with a 1, it looks like we're purchasing an ambulance, and if a number starts with a 2, it's purchasing an engine, that we could still be able to do that and maintain this fund in a very sustainable way, in a way to fulfill the mission of getting to 11, which is what our operational studies have shown us for years that we need to get to, while not compromising our financial sustainability model. So I believe this is a very conservative approach, but I really appreciate your feedback because it is something that we have been going back and forth on for months.
Yeah, I guess just to thank you for the added context and for sharing the screen a little bit longer. So a 1 in that column of transfer out would say, hey, we're raising funds or we're going to buy a new ambulance, and a 2 would be we're raising funds or buying a new fire engine. Is that right?
I would pause that to say, so receipts is money in. So we're assuming a 0% increase in rates, which is not likely, but it's a 0. The transfers out is what we are buying. So if it starts with a 1, it means we are buying an ambulance in that year, projected. And if it starts with a 2, it means we are buying an engine from the existing ambulance receipts that are coming in already.
But is this enough to fund a fire engine plus 2 firefighters and still have?
It is.
Okay.
That transfers out includes, for that 1 year, like FY26, it includes an ambulance and the additional 278,000 for the 2 additional firefighters.
Yeah,
And then you'll
I
just see
guess,
the ending balance on the right-hand side of
yeah.
what the ending balance of the account would be that year if all 3 things happened here. Then this would be the ending balance each year.
and so if I'm reading this correctly, the 900,000 or just a tick short of 900,000 is the cost of those 2 firefighters that we'd be taking out every year, right? Is that correct?
No.
In that is 278,000 for the firefighters, and then also those other things I just mentioned that are
Okay.
already being funded each year with ambulance receipts.
Okay. So we're basically taking away 280, I think it's 87,000, all right, 278,000 every year. Do you have an escalator on that in this formula every year? If,
We do. And so the
contracts
escrow would then be absorbed in this model through taxation of the operating budget of the department each year.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I think my general comment still stands. I'm not looking for like a definitive answer here. I think this is just a shift in even if just in this isolated case, I think it's a shift in position and stance on this. I think the elephant, in the room here is like, we have 1s for ambulances and 2s for fire engine purchases, but we have nothing for a new fire station. And so in the world of a fixed pie and a zero-sum game, I think any money we're putting in or taking out of this type of funds could otherwise be going to a one-time expense, such as a fire station improvement, upgrade, replacement. So I just think that's, within the world of public safety, within the world of fire, I think that's something that we are not necessarily accounting for, which would typically be a good use of ambulance receipts as a one-time, hey, we're only going to replace this fire station once every 50 years or 60 years. So I will just sort of put it out there that I feel like that's kind of a missing thing in terms of where this money could otherwise be allocated, more aligned with our typical principles of how we spend variable income accounts.
Thank you, Alex. I appreciate that thoughtful comment. I do.
Okay,
Thanks.
a few more hands. So Chris, then Paul, then Christine. Oh, Chris, you're on mute.
So, Alex, I think the adage you're looking for is the camel's nose into the tent. And this is definitely the nose getting into the tent. I too share your concern a little bit when I first heard about this. I do appreciate the analysis that Stephanie is presented here. And it looks adequate, at least for fiscal year 27 and maybe for a couple more years, but I think we need to keep a real close eye on it. I know Stephanie will. And eventually try to work this into the regular operating budget of the fire department, paid through taxation, and to get it out of ambulance receipts. But for now, I'm thrilled that we can find a way of adding 2 firefighters, which I understand is a contractual obligation. Is that right?
The adding of 2 firefighters?
Right. What didn't the select board agree at one point in time that they were going to add 4, and we added 2 last year, and now we're adding the other 2?
That's not contractually obligated, but yes, the select board voiced an interest, not an interest, a desire to add 4 positions, and we were able to add 2 in FY25, I think it was.
Correct. Yes.
And so this would be adding the 2 to fulfill their commitment.
Okay. All right. Great. So it's not contractually obligated, but it is a commitment of the select board.
And Chris, this is absolutely something that will be analyzed each year, to see that we can still afford. Yep.
One more question. I wonder if, you don't have the numbers now. I imagine you don't. If you do, that's great. But I wonder if you could get with the fire chief and see if you could present the next time you come before us, what the positive impact of doing this would be. We're adding 2 firefighters. Will that reduce overtime to any significant extent? And
No,
and-
that's a great question. Yes, I can, Molly, jump into it if you want. I would say yes, but I don't have data in front of me to show you that that's the case. But you would assume, right, if there's 2 more extra bodies on all these shifts and we're keeping the minimum staffing to 9, that's less people to have to backfill, right? So, but yes,
Yeah,
it's something we can maybe work on getting actual analysis on.
I would agree
yeah,
with in theory.
if you could quantize that, then that'd be great.
Okay.
That's it.
Thanks, Chris. Paul?
Yeah, so 2 questions. One was just piggybacking a little bit on what Chris was just talking, just in terms of what's the need that the 2 additional firefighters meet? In other words, I see what the staffing guidelines are, but what was driving that? And I know you'll come back to us with that. So that was just kind of reiterating that point. The second, though, goes back a few slides to just the breakout between the salary obligations that we've got, the 84% versus the expenses at 16%. So clearly that's going to continue to put pressure on the expenses, right? Because we're locked into the COLA and the salaries are going to, you would anticipate pretty confidently that that's going to continue to be above the 2.5% we've got. So it continues to put pressure on that 16% of expenses that we've got. I know at the last board meeting, there was a question brought up to you, Stephanie, in terms of, are we at this point rejecting expense requests that are material to the effectiveness of the municipal departments? And your answer at that point was yes, although we didn't go into any of the details of what exactly those are. I'm not looking to add a whole lot to the budget, but I'd like to have a better understanding, whether it's here at the next meeting, what are those expense requests that we're rejecting because of the pressure we're putting on the budget and the expense portion of the municipal budget in particular? What are those? And is there a need that we should be looking at to reconsider?
That's a great question. I know at the last, might have been the last select board meeting, or one before that, I had a slide on position requests that came in from departments that were decided not to be funded this year by the select board through the budget, but I didn't have expenses. So that's a great point, and I can definitely come up with something for the next time I'm in front of you to go through that. Yes.
Okay, great. Thanks.
Thanks, Stephanie. Christine?
My question is centered around, if we are to bring in 2 new firefighters, where do these folks reside? Are we anticipating that this is FS1, which I know right now in the current facility likely isn't, that's likely not a fit because I think we're undersized for our current staff, or are we anticipating that they will reside at the FS2 location, and how are we mapping that out?
Yeah, that's an excellent question, and I never presume to speak for the chief, but in this case, I do happen to know a lot about fire department staffing. The 2 additional personnel would be placed at Station 2 in Islington, and that would allow the department to operate an ambulance, 1 out of FS1 and 1 out of FS2.
Because all the ambulances today come from FS1, right?
Correct, yeah.
So they come across town.
Mhm.
Alex?
This is a small item, but you had mentioned it, Stephanie, that there was a transfer or an increase in electric for, was it the police station by 20,000 or something like that for electric vehicle? Is that right? Did I have it right?
Yes, that's correct. Yep. Do you want me to
Are
go into
we-
more detail on that?
I guess I'll ask my specific questions, then you can answer them with info or thoughts. That are we seeing a decrease in gasoline or traditional fuel costs as an offset to that electric vehicle expense? And my second question is, I remember that the planning board some time ago, or maybe this was Nora on economic community development, chargers in town, certainly the one by the library in Islington. I don't know about the one at the fire station, police station front or back. We're open for anybody's consumption. Just drive up and plug in and charge up on Westwood taxpayer dimes. Is that still the case? And is that the case for this particular police station electric charging situation?
Yeah, so great questions. I'll start with the police station. Oh, sorry. Molly, is that you
Just
talking?
gonna say you can take half and I can take half. The second half,
great.
second half is easier to say. Is the police station that when those were put in, those are a pay to charge. So anybody plugging in at that police station does charge. The charging stations at both Wentworth Hall and the library do not have that capability. We are working with Tom Philbin, who just received a grant because he's the king of the grants, to purchase new EV chargers for both Wentworth and Carby Street, which will then be allowable to take payment. So we're in the process of converting our existing EV structure to allow that.
Yeah, and the select board, gosh, at this point, I don't know when it was, probably in the last year and a half, adopted a policy allowing that with rates. And so that is something that can happen just once the capability is there. So the police station is the only location with electric vehicle chargers in town that has that capability. So right now, that is open to the public. The police department heavily uses it, which is a good thing because they have a lot of hybrid vehicles. So along the lines of the gasoline, right, that should be helping their use on gas because they've been buying a lot of hybrid and electric vehicles. So they use those chargers. Obviously, we don't charge them, but that is electric use. And then anyone outside of the department, when they come to plug in and charge up, there is a charge, and they use the word charge a lot. I'm sorry. And the credit card takes credit card. That revenue comes back to the town, but it comes in through what we call general fund revenues, which basically is local receipts. So and I'll have this in a different slide later, we're increasing on the local receipt side, the revenue from that to offset and sort of fund this expense. So if it makes sense, we still have to pay the electric bill from what is being used by people at that charger, but they're also giving us revenue from paying for the charge.
So is the net offset the 20,000, or is the net really less 15,000, 10,000? And have we saved money from a gasoline standpoint in exchange?
Yep. So we only have 1 year of data on this, if I'm being honest. So FY20, I don't remember the current year. We have about a year of data, and this $20,000 is based on what was used in that year. And then on the revenue side, we were matching that, if not a little bit over. So we're going to be keeping, honestly, this is very new, and we're going to be keeping an eye on it, which is why we're slowly introducing other locations as well. We want to make sure that we know exactly sort of what the revenue coming in looks like. But these were based on actual expenses from the last year, that $20,000 estimate.
Okay. Thank you.
Yep. I'm happy to keep answering questions, but should I move on and then?
Yeah, let's keep going.
Again, I know there's a lot. This chart just shows the growth in municipal budget over a multi-year period. And as you can see, that 5.1% for this year. All right. So the municipal budget is part of what we call the operating budget, which includes the schools, fixed costs, debt service, and enterprise funds. This is probably what most residents know as Article 3 at town meeting or Appendix D in the FinCom warrant book. All right, so these are just the categories included in that operating budget. And for FY27, that total number is just over $125 million, which is a 4% increase. So here's a breakdown of the categories, and just also note again, the school budget is highlighted there. It's subject to change pending finalization by school and town leadership. So you'll see that note throughout the presentation a number of times, so I won't call it out again, but in case you see that number anywhere, just please note that. Also, some items are still estimates, including health insurance, Blue Hills assessment, and the MWRA assessment, which is on our sewer side. So some of these might be tweaked a little bit, but this is why I come in front of you a couple of times to update you on any new information we get. This slide is just for context. Each 1% increase equals about $887,000 in combined town and school spending. So those are two sort of the largest budgets in the operating. So I just wanted to show what each 1% increase for those equates to. Fixed costs are expenses the town does not control year to year, but must fund in full. And this is one of the categories within the operating budget. In general, we budget conservatively in this area just due to the volatility. Fixed costs do make up about 20% of the total operating budget. So it's sort of almost the same size as the municipal. The items in this include pensions, health insurance, insurance reserved, and shared assessments. These costs are largely outside of direct local control and can fluctuate significantly year to year. And this graph just has specifics on the employee benefits piece of that, which for the FY27 budget is 19.3 million. This slide just shows more detail on all the fixed shared costs. So first, the benefits category that I just showed you. Then the next area is the shared cost account, which is just over 2 million. That includes the liability insurance. So that's property and liability insurance for all buildings throughout town and general liability, hardware and software maintenance, and energy efforts, which is partly Tom Philbin, who Molly has talked about, the king of grants, as she said. There's also 2.18 million for trash and recycling. I get asked this a lot, so I just want to point out we're in the first year of a 5-year contract for that. And then lastly, the $820,000 for the reserve. So this would be the FinCom reserve, the select board reserve, as well as an appropriation for special town meetings. It's a lot of detail on here. I'll go by step for each one. The total fixed costs are projected to increase this next year by 2.8%, or about $678,000. That is materially lower than last year. Last year, the increase was almost 8%, but it still consumes a large portion of the available growth. So the pension assessment is projected to actually decrease next year by 4.6%, or roughly $332,000. This reflects the FY27 preliminary assessment from the Norfolk County Retirement System. The board recently extended the fully funded by date for the pension, pushing the unfunded liability target out to FY31. So this is a one-time decrease. It's great. It came at a great time, but future years are expected to resume increases again. Health insurance is we're projecting to increase by approximately 8.5% right now, or $781,000. This estimate is based on updated information from the GIC. A couple months ago, we were projecting 12% based on their initial numbers that they came out with. Final plan details and rates won't be voted until later in February. You can see the dates there. Their February 26th meeting is the big one that we wait for. And that number will be updated for you as soon as the final rates are set. So just for context, recent annual increases have ranged from 5 to 10%. So this projection is consistent with trends, which is increasing. Other fixed cost drivers, the trash disposal costs are projected to increase by about 5.7%, or $118,000. And like I said, that is based on contract pricing. Townwide hardware and software costs are increasing by $274,000, due primarily to the implementation of a new financial system and ongoing licensing. So thank you to town meeting. They approved last year funding to implement a new financial software system. So we're moving forward with that. But with that, while we have a very antiquated system that I'm excited to get rid of, it was on the cheaper end. Of course, anything new is going to be more expensive. So this will be for the ongoing licensing. And then comprehensive liability insurance will be increased by $84,000. Other fixed costs are generally level funded. We specifically did that this year to keep costs down. The payroll tax budget was actually decreased by approximately $250,000 based on recent actuals on the school side. So these offsets helped moderate the overall increase. And just for comparison, like I said, FY26 was a 7.9% increase, just under 2 million. Debt. So moving on to a different category in the operating budget. The FY27 debt budget totals $7.4 million, or a 4% increase. The exempt debt side of things has slightly decreased due to just the natural decline in payments, specifically for the library bond. That's a decreasing payment. The non-exempt debt is increasing due to a recent borrowing we did for a number of capital projects that were all approved over the last 3 town meetings. So we did a long-term borrowing for that in November. So that is set to be the first payment in FY27, and that'll be absorbed on the non-exempt debt side. And just to help manage the debt service growth, we are partially funding the debt service increase for one of those projects, which was the cemetery expansion, with $286,000 in cemetery lot sale revenue. And this is standard for that account. And this approach to funding was presented at town meeting when this project was approved. So that will sort of offset basically almost the whole increase on the non-exempt debt side. So I'll now move on to the overall budget. So the municipal fits within the operating, and the operating fits within the overall. And this is just a larger picture of all revenue sources and proposed expenditures, not just the operating budget. So this is a comprehensive plan that balances operating needs, ongoing services, capital investment, reserves, and then long-term obligations. Like I said, this is the book that I mentioned, the overall summary book, we call it. It will be distributed later this month with a lot more details on all of these categories. So just a breakdown of each one. The school department budget is currently proposed at a 4.3% increase. Again, just please see the note. The municipal budget is at 5.1%, and then fixed costs are currently growing at 2.8%. So this reflects a deliberate effort to manage the fixed costs while maintaining quality services. The select board continues to prioritize reinvestment in town and school assets. So you'll see there a breakdown of what we're planning for the capital budget this year. That reflects both base capital funding and supplemental investments. So free cash, meals and hotel tax, ambulance receipts, and sewer retained earnings are all funding sources that are used strategically for the capital budget. There are then reserves and liabilities that need funding, specifically the stabilization account and the OPEB trust fund. There are no articles this year that require borrowing. And then there is an article still being reviewed that will make an allocation to the Special Education Reserve Fund. So that's one of those ones that I'll come back in March with more detail on when I go article by article. Oh, sorry. I'm so sorry. I did not know this had animation. So I'll keep that for one more minute so you can read through it. And the overall budget, as I already said, is balanced between the revenue and expenditure side. All right, so the overall proposed expenditure budget totals 135.9 million, which represents a 4.8% increase over FY26. Here's a very detailed breakdown of that. But really there are four major categories: operating, debt, capital, and then other appropriations such as OPEB and stabilization. I'll leave that for a minute. These numbers really are just for you to have to reference if you want to deep dive into them.
The capital sewer one, Stephanie,
Yep.
just because it sticks out.
Yep. Yeah, it does. That's
a little bit.
Yeah.
Was that tied back to that that article from last year on the sewers, or is this something else?
This is something else. I'll stop on that slide when we get to it, because in FY26 it was one of the years that they barely had anything. It was really just their ongoing sewer maintenance they needed funding for. And this includes a bigger maintenance plan, and I'll stop on that slide and get back to it when we get there. Thank you, though.
Yep, thanks.
Speaking of which, I have a few slides with information on the capital budget articles, and I do want to highlight the important information. I won't walk through every single item unless there are specific questions. The capital book has been distributed and is on the website with a lot of detailed information on each project or item requested. And I have presented to this select board on the different projects. But again, I'm very happy. I'll stop for just a second on each one to see if there's specific questions. Starting with, you'll just see down here, I'll point out there are different categories. We have what we call base capital funded with free cash. So there's one for municipal and one for school. And then there are what we call the additional capital articles. So there's one this year funded with meals and hotel tax for about 1.18 million. There's then another one funded with free cash for just over 2.1 million. There's then the sewer capital improvements that Bill just referenced for 760,000, and ambulance investments using ambulance receipts for 553,000. So here's sort of what those articles will look like. This is proposed article number 4, which is part of the base capital. This is on the municipal side. As you can see, these are pretty standard. This is what we call base because it's really supposed to be reoccurring, investment in technology, safety equipment, building maintenance, ongoing things, and then any vehicles that are part of the individual department's 10-year fleet maintenance programs. So that's number 4. There's then proposed article number 5, which is the base article on the school side. So they have their different categories, and I know they're in front of you in March, and they'll go into more detail on that side of things as well. This is then Article 7. That's the one I said was funded with free cash. These are a number of projects throughout town. There's a sidewalk enhancement plan, just a roofing project, some heating system upgrades on the school side, and then a truck for the DPW department, as well as a radio infrastructure upgrade, a project that's going to be done by both police and fire for upgrades throughout town on the radio infrastructure. The other article funded with meals and hotel tax for additional capital. Again, a combination of both school and town projects, fire alarm upgrades, meeting room technology is a big one, I'll say, because I know we're all excited to have more hybrid meetings, so that will help assist us with that. That's specifically for the Gillette meeting room, Molly. Can I say that correctly? Yep. Okay. So it's for the Gillette meeting room, which will make that a hybrid space. That's an exciting one. And then, so this is the sewer bill that I had said I'll stop on for a minute. As you can see, they always have a stormwater requirement allocation they get each year. This year, there is funding for what we call I&I, the inflow and infiltration. It's investigation work. That's into like the sewer pipes to see what's going on down there. And then they also have a sewer pump station upgrade, a project that's going on that has been in their capital plan for a number of years, and it's just due up this year, and a vehicle as well. So it's just a higher amount of funding on their capital side, but that's all with sewer retained earnings as part of the enterprise fund. So that's specific funding dedicated for that purpose. And then number 9 is similar, but on the ambulance side. So just their normal rescue upgrade and replacement for the fire for the ambulance. And then they are purchasing an ambulance as part of their rotating cycle for $525,000. And just overall, really what these do is allow us to address higher priority projects without overlying on the operating budget. I'll stop there for a minute. Okay, I see some hands. Bill, I'll let you sort of call on people if you
I
want.
think Paul, Christine, then Chris.
Okay. So Stephanie, just for my education on it, the amount that we're spending for capital improvements via free cash, is that in line with what we've historically done? Is there any uptick or just perspective on where we're spending this year versus historic numbers?
Historically, there has always been the free cash funds, what we call the base capital.
Yeah.
That is traditionally been funded. There's usually been an additional capital article as well. Could be funded with free cash, could be funded with meals and hotel tax. This number is maybe a little bit higher than previous years, but as I'll get into later, we also have a higher free cash balance than usual. So it is absolutely sustainable, and it's something we reevaluate year to year. The additional is not a set amount. We evaluate based on current reserve amounts and what we can afford to put in as projects.
Okay, helpful, because I think that's one where folks can look at this and say, we're sitting on 15 million. And I get that we need to have that 4%, whatever that comes to, 4.8 million on a regular basis for the bond rating. Then you've got a couple million, whether it's 3 or 4 million in addition to that. But then you've still got that significant, I don't want to say gap, but that significant excess.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why I'm wondering, is this a little bit more of a stretch, and rightfully so, or in line with what we've historically done?
And we've also, over the last 2 years, increased the base amount for school and municipal partially based on that reason, because we could afford to do so. And it was something that we have a target in our financial policies that we want to stick to for those base amounts, because it's really an investment, right, in our infrastructure that we want to maintain. And so we're now closer to that target than we've been.
And then the last question is, can the free cash, is it mandated that it's capital improvements versus, kind of the operating, or how does that work? And I know that, well, let me ask that question first.
Sure. And this is sort of this is, I think, exactly what Alex was saying earlier. So we always say our one-time revenue sources that aren't reoccurring go to one-time expenses. So it's mainly capital. We use free cash a lot for capital. We also use it for an allocation to the stabilization fund, which is within, our policies as well. That's a one-time allocation each year the town meeting needs to approve. So it does not go towards funding our operating budget on a regular basis, no.
But we have used it in the past on things like our fixed costs, like pensions, things like that, right? Which, if you're funding that, by default, you're possibly reducing your operating budget, right?
Yeah, this was a topic that was talked about in a good way a lot during the FinCom process last year.
Okay.
Our pension came in extremely high for 1 year, much higher than it had been, probably double, triple what it had been in years prior to that. We knew it was an issue, and thankfully that came to fruition, that they reevaluated the funding plan and realized that towns couldn't continue to afford that. So we partially funded the pension assessment in the FY26 budget by about $320,000 as a one-time plan to get us through that unanticipated increase. But that is not included in this year's budget. As we went over with the FinCom last year, it was not a plan to permanently have that in there.
Okay. Appreciate it.
No, thank you.
Christine?
The SOAR budget, I'm almost like thinking of that. So we have that, the capital that's going to be used to fund the these upgrades that are outlined.
Mm-hmm.
That is revenue that's reoccurring. So given that this isn't like a typical year, we don't typically, have $760,000 in investments. What happens to that funding? Is that like a reserve account, and then we just hold on to it for these every 10-year projects, or does that end up filtering into like the free cash if there's not like projects to be funded? I'm just curious about how that capital.
No, that's a great question. I could probably spend a half hour just talking about the sewer enterprise fund, but I'll try to sum it up. So our sewer department, as you probably see, they send out sewer bills. So they take in revenue, and that is what's called, which is a mass general law, like a legal funding approach. It's called an enterprise fund. So all the revenue from that department stays within an account. It doesn't, they have their own version of free cash, I guess you could say, at the end of the year. And that is what is used to fund the capital portion. But everything they operate out of, they have staffing in there, they have equipment, ongoing expenses. It is all paid for out of that enterprise fund. And then their version of free cash is the retained earnings at the end of the year for anything that comes in over their projected revenue. And that's what's used to fund this.
And then, and this is obviously like a substantial amount of money. And so that stays separate, always. That stays separate from any kind of like operating budget. Like none of that would ever be like filtered in to like help offset like other municipal expenses.
Oh, no, the enterprise fund really stays within the sewer department to fund that budget.
Okay.
Chris?
So I have a couple of small questions, Stephanie. First, real quick, do you know whether or not the sewer pump station upgrade is related in any way to the enlargement of the culvert on Conant Road?
I don't think that relates. I know that this has been going on. They do like a 0 to 5 year required replacement on these, and it includes pump, pump motors, check valves, gate valves, generators, stuff, HVAC equipment. It's all upgrades for those facilities. And I know that they do this sort of just like on the vehicle side with 10-year replacement plans. The DPW department watches these facilities and makes sure that everything's replaced on an ongoing basis to maintain them. So I don't think it correlates specifically to that project, but I don't want to speak for Todd, but I can get you that answer.
Okay, great, thanks.
Yeah.
I noticed that the police chief is going to purchase a couple of vehicles. I drove by there one day, and it could be that he was having a training exercise and everybody was at the police station at the same time, but it looked like there was an enormous fleet of cars there. And I'm just curious as to, do we really need all those cars? So you might go back to the police chief and say, why do you need to buy 2 more cars? You already have a fleet that exceeds Hertz. But that's beside the point.
One thing I can say is that funds the replacement of 4 vehicles for the replacement plan. So that's something I can give you.
Well,
Great
I
question.
know that the replacement is on a cycle. I'm just questioning the sheer number of vehicles that the police chief has, and wondering whether, given he only has 45 officers, does he need 45 vehicles? I don't know whether he has 45 vehicles, but that's the scale that I was struck with when I drove by there.
Chris, could I ask, did you by chance drive by this week? Is that a reference?
No, this was a month or so ago.
Okay, just because they do happen to have a lot of people there this week for a reaccreditation process by peer review by other law enforcement. So,
And it could have been that there was something similar was happening when I happened to drive by. So it just struck me. That's Stephanie, go back to slide 17.
Oh, going way back. Okay.
And it looks like those categories are pretty high level categories. And I'm just wondering why traffic supervisors fits into that scale.
Yes. A funny point, but thank you. So I just pull out the Blue Hills Regional School Assessment and the traffic supervisors because those technically are included in the school budget. So if you see the voting level at town meeting, that school operating budget is really about $135,000 more.
Okay.
But the schools, when they put out their budget, this is the number that they put out. They don't include those two. So to not convolute it, I didn't want to, I pull that out so that the actual number shows what the schools are presenting. But I do want to remind people that those 2 things are included in their budget. So.
Okay. All right. Lastly, and it goes back to your very first slide, but you don't have to go there. The discussion about the timing of our budget process. I know that the school department had a significant issue this year that hopefully has been resolved, but I wonder if the select board might take one of those miscellaneous articles and address that issue about the timing of the budget process. We don't have much to work with, but we should probably fit our process to match the state process, so that we don't get in the same bind that we did this year, apparently, where the state is releasing its numbers a couple of days after we've already established a sort of a breakdown on the town budget between school and municipalities. So that's just something I throw out there. Maybe we could use one of those miscellaneous articles for that.
And what you're referring to, I think, is, so as part of our charter, it's actually in the town charter that a budget be presented 3 months prior to town meeting, which is usually around the week of February 1st. Yeah.
Right.
And I actually have a whole slide going through the state aid timeline a little bit later on. So more on that. Stay tuned.
All right. That's it.
Alex.
Hello again. So Stephanie, just 2 things on some of these subsequent slides. One, just going back to the initial comment I had around ambulance receipts paying for new firefighters. And this is just more of an observation. I think there's a couple of rows here that are fire department capital expenses, somewhere around $250,000 or $300,000 that are being funded by free cash and not by ambulance receipts.
Oh, yeah, you're referring to the base capital, this one?
Yeah, so the turnout gear, the radio upgrade, and I think there's something else on another slide that's related to fire. I mean, again, I just to illustrate the point further, like we're funding these two positions through ambulance receipts, but then we're still needing to go back to the well of free cash for true one-time fire related expenses. So I just want to illustrate that unless I'm misreading something.
I would just point out that so ambulance receipts have to be used for the ambulance service. Turnout gear and radio upgrades don't fall under, strictly speaking, what that would cover, right? So turnout gear is gear that you wear into a fire, not to a medical call. The radio upgrade and replacement maybe very tangentially could replace, tie to the ambulance service because there's a radio on the ambulance, but that would be a bit of a stretch. And so the separation has historically been with this account since it was set up decades ago, that it would supplement the department providing an ambulance service, not the fire service. And so it's a very fine line of a distinction there.
Yeah, it feels a little bit gray. I mean, I assume those ambulance staffing, paramedics, firefighters also have turnout gear, with them or at the station, right? They're obviously using radios. And I would argue that the funding the two firefighters, we're not strictly just funding people in ambulance seats, right? Like they're likely to also ride fire engines and such and so forth as staffing and needs arise. So I feel like that might be a little bit too liberal of an interpretation to me personally. But I do think like the fact that we're going to free cash to pull out another $250,000, which is almost exactly the amount that we're carving out for these two firefighters, is taking away free cash for capital needs of other departments in town, schools, library, DPW, et cetera, et cetera. So again, I'm not looking for a response. I just want to illustrate how I feel like this starts to scope creep out and impact other departments in town who have 200 and something $1,000 less for capital needs and improvements. So that was one thing, mostly just for the commission to think about as we sort of further discuss this tweak in policy. The second was, I don't know if this is a typo, but at the top row you have a one ton dump truck for 400,000, and then on the other slide there's a one ton dump truck for 150,000.
I never make typos, Alex. Never. No, I'm kidding. It's because they're in different articles, you're saying?
Well, no, just that a 1 ton dump truck would be one would be 150,000 and another virtually the same vehicle, it seems like, would be $250,000 more.
Sorry, yes. So I have information on this one. I know that that's going to be used for plowing in the winter and then year-round hauling of things like sand and loam and stuff. And I know that the other one has different pieces of equipment on it. I don't have it in front of me right now, Alex. I'm sorry. It's not a typo. That is legitimate quote. It's just the attachments that go onto it is really what drives the price of these things. And this one has different attachments on it. And I promise you, I'll send you information on what they are.
I just wanted to make sure we weren't talking about 3 1-ton dump trucks on that first row, given the cost difference.
Nope, that's just one.
Okay. Thank you.
Susan?
Hello, thank you. I just had a question related to the discussion on the free cash and whether it had to be used for capital. Am I correct in last year we used free cash for the salary increases as a result of that market study that was done?
No, the class and compensation study, that was implemented and the costs hit originally on January 1st in the FY25 budget, and then were fully absorbed into the normal budgeting process in 26. So that was all part of taxation, unless I want to pause though. I want to say that.
Okay, yeah, my memory was that we used free cash for the raises that were done, that were implemented mid-year.
No, and Molly, I'm sorry to call on you again.
No,
but
I was just going to jump in to say we did not use free cash for the class and comp study. I know we used ambulance receipts to fund the fire overtime. If there was a police overtime Article 2, that might have been free cash.
But in the regular Article 3 total operating budget, all of those salary increases due to the class and comp study were absorbed with our normal increase through taxation.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. I'm gonna, oh, more hands. Okay.
Sorry, one last question. I know that we've been talking about like, how can we use the free cash fund? It obviously has increased over the years. And we're finally going to use some of the capital, and we're going to have it sort of, it looks like, spread out and diversified across many different parts of the municipality. Do you know what, but then you also mentioned that it's continued to escalate and continue to increase, sort of, again, like higher than we would have typically anticipated year over year. It seems to that's been the trend. So even with us spending money out of that bucket, do we still have a large reserve left over?
That's probably like 2 or 3 slides away. Do you mind if I go through and then I'll come back to that?
Yep.
Okay, perfect. Thanks for the tee up though. Okay. So the stabilization fund is the town's primary reserve account, we call. It's critical to financial flexibility and the AAA credit rating that the town currently holds. The FY27 budget includes $125,000 transfer from free cash to remain on target with our policy. So our target number is 4.5 million as of this year, and with that $125,000 allocation, we'll be just under that at 4.35 million. OPEB. So these, and I always say this, I want to make sure that I spell out the acronym because not everyone knows about this. It's other post-employment benefits. So these are benefits employees receive other than after retirement, other than pension. So things like health insurance, dental insurance. For the OPEB liability trust fund, we are on target with our current funding plan. There is a funding plan in place to fund that. That's a lot of words, fund, but to fund that unfunded liability. The proposed appropriation for FY27 is $1,615,000, which is in line with our financial policies that recommend a $25,000 increase each year. So that's a $25,000 increase over the FY26 appropriation. The goal ultimately is the reduction and then eventual elimination of the unfunded piece of that liability for these benefits, similar to the pension side. The trust fund account balance is approximately $28 million. Okay, so now that I've gone through all the expenditure side that make up the budget, I'm just going to go through the revenue sources that fund these expenses. The FY27 projected revenue is the same amount, of course, because it has to be balanced, 135.9 million, which is a 4.8% increase over FY26. There are 8 categories. You can see them listed here. The 4 main ones that I'll focus on are property taxes, state aid, local receipts, and free cash. Okay. So about 80% of our funding comes from property taxes. That's normal for a community in Massachusetts like Westwood. State aid, sewer revenue, local receipts, and available funds make up the remainder. So this continues to be a very heavily tax-supported budget with limited flexibility elsewhere. And then for FY27, the tax revenue supporting the overall budget is 107.6 million. And this chart just shows the calculation behind the property tax amount I just referenced in the budget and how the tax levy is built. So in Massachusetts, all property tax revenue is governed by Proposition 2.5, which is a law. In simple terms, that means that it limits how much total property taxes a community can raise from one year to the next. So that total, called the tax levy, can only increase by 2.5% over the prior year's levy. So here's the prior year. We start off with that number for the calculation, and then we add new growth from things like new construction or significant renovations or development. And then we can include any approved override or exempt debt. So you'll see that in the blue highlighted section for exempt debt. And then the result is the maximum levy limit, what we can legally allowed to raise. And just some notes, new growth is not certified by the Department of Revenue until the fall of each year. So, for example, new growth for the year we're currently in won't be certified until November or December. So during this stage of the budget right now for next year, we proceed with estimated new growth, and we do that conservatively. And then any unused tax levy is taxes that were not raised. So potential revenue to be raised, not actual dollars. So for FY27, the current budget utilizes the full levy amount. So just going back through, you start off with the previous year's amount, add 2.5% per the law, estimate new growth at this point. That comes to the levy limit. Then we add in exempt debt, which is the principal and interest payments for debt that has already been approved. And this comes to that levy capacity that I talked about. So that's that 107.6 million that we're funding the budget with. So just moving on to some of the other main revenue sources, local receipts. Up next, local receipts are locally generated revenues other than real and personal property taxes. So the local receipts projection for FY27 has been increased slightly by $50,000. And I touched on this a little bit earlier. That increase is tied to the new revenue from electric vehicle chargers at the police station to offset that increase that we have on the expenditure side. And then also from new revenue we'll be receiving from what's called a CSA agreement with Brigham and Women's Hospital. So that's a building in town, and we'll be receiving each year revenue from an agreement that the select board has with them. Motor vehicle excise tax is the largest driver of receipts. So I just listed here some data on that category. And then the current FY27 budget for local receipts that will fund on the revenue side is 5.15 million. State aid. So state aid represents about 6% of our total FY27 revenue. So it matters, but it doesn't drive the budget. It's on the smaller end of the total percentage. The governor did release the FY27 proposed budget on January 23rd. And the numbers on this slide reflect that update. So prior to that release, state aid had been assumed to be level funded, which is where we usually start off every year. All state aid updates have been incorporated into the FY27 budget to help bring it into balance. And total state aid receipts are projected to increase by $239,000, which is about 2.7%. Chapter 70, which is on the education aid side, is the majority of the increase at about 213,000. Then what we call municipal unrestricted aid, or UGA, and other smaller programs show a modest increase as well. So, and then on the charge side, because we also, it's not just revenue, we also get charges from the state, offset a portion of that gain. So just the net impact, like I said, is about $227,000. These numbers, as Chris had pointed out earlier, they are preliminary. The next update, though, will come from the House Ways and Means Committee in late April. And then that's followed by an update from the Senate in May, and then what's called the Conference Committee in June. So the final state budget is typically not even signed until early July. Sort of why that time frame matters, just any increase above these estimates would reduce the tax levy. So anything that comes in excess of this that isn't included in the current budget, eventually during the recap process in the fall, will reduce the overall tax levy. And then any decrease, or say we over budgeted this amount or a decrease came in, would need to be absorbed within the existing budget. So that's just why we remain conservative in our assumptions. This slide I'm not going to read through, but it's just for your reference to have. It's current balances on all the funding sources I just talked about. So is specifically the Meals No Teletax account, ambulance receipts, and sewer retained earnings. It's just showing that whatever we're funding for articles with those funding sources for FY27 has enough in that account to handle it at town meeting. So free cash. It is currently certified by the Department of Revenue as of July 1st of 2025 at $15.7 million. It is a revenue source that results from the calculation of the town's remaining unrestricted funds from its operation of the previous fiscal year, And it's based on the balance sheet as of June 30th. So this can also be called retained earnings. It includes actual, so what's it included in? It includes actual receipts in excess of revenue estimates. So anything that comes in, say, in local receipts above and beyond what we estimated for revenue. Turn back from department budgets at the end of the year. Our turn back rate overall for all our departments, I believe for FY25, it was about 2%, which is normal. So a low amount, but anything that comes back from our departments at the end of the year. And then unexpended free cash from the previous year. It's then offset by property tax receivables and certain deficits. So this year's balance, which it has been for the last probably 2 or 3 years, is a combination of factors that includes, like I said, we've had a higher than average beginning balance for the last, this is probably the 3rd year. That also includes higher revenue for motor vehicle excise, investment income, and building permits. Those are the 3 main drivers for this, as far as excess revenue coming in over than what we projected. It is a high number, but it's not an indication of any ongoing budget issues. Like I said before, free cash is not applied to operating budgets. Typically, it's used for one-time expenses, and that's done for a reason. Our financial policies target about $4.3 million unallocated. And for FY27, the proposed budget is currently being funded by a total of $6 million of free cash. This is for the school and municipal base capital. I just went over that additional article, the stabilization fund, the FinCom reserve account, the select board reserve fund. And then not included right now in that number is anything that might come up as needing to be closed out for the current fiscal year, which is typically done through what we call Article 2 at town meeting. So any transfers that are needed. That's and any other article that might come up that wouldn't be included in here. But so I'm going to pause because I know there was questions earlier about free cash. So, and I already see a hand up.
Yeah, Alex had his hand up. I was letting you finish.
Thank you.
Can you go back a couple slides back to the new the 2.5 Prop 2.5 slide where you've got the funding sources? On this slide, new growth seems really conservative, too conservative. I think in my mind, it's about 1/3 of what the actual was from last year.
Yes.
Can you, and much less than we've seen as, you know, as far back as this slide goes by a considerable amount. Can you just share why this number is so conservative going into next year?
Sure. And I'll sort of put it in context specifically for this year. And I try to limit sort of what I get into tonight because I know, again, it's a lot of dense material, but I gave a presentation in the fall to the select board on this free cash number, on the free cash number when it came up in our recap. And as part of that, I updated them on new growth. So this is more typical of what we've been seeing lately. It's this 725,000 and the 931 is more typical. FY26, that new growth number is significantly higher than we anticipated it being. A new assessor came in. She's fantastic. Cheryl Hanley, in case any of you don't know her. She did a real deep dive into a number of things. This is not a number that we see going forward. I see between the 700 and 900,000 range being more typical of our new growth number. And specifically because years before that, obviously the university station was driving new growth and getting us higher numbers. And now in that, unless there is new development, it really is just, people doing additions on their homes or any kind of small new growth that is coming in. So yes, that is something that comes up. We specifically do estimate it conservatively. If that number ever was estimated higher and our new growth did not come in and meet that, we would have to make mid-year budget cuts to fund that. So it is done specifically to be conservative. The 550,000 is something though that we look at. Say again, for FY27, the new growth comes in next fall, and we see that, oh, maybe this is our new number. There's just a lot of building permits being pulled in town and a lot of growth being put on just even on the residential side. Then it's something we can evaluate moving forward. Does that answer your question?
It does. It does. I guess I just feel like this is overly conservative based on as far back as we can see on this slide, and I bet if we pulled prior years before that, it would be also conservative relative to those past numbers. I just feel like, as a town, we're in this constant pressure on budgets and increases and the cost of everything going up, and therefore the cost of budgets going up and salaries and responsibilities. And I feel like on some of these fronts, we're putting undue pressure on the budget where we are being overly conservative on income sources, or we anticipate a forecast. And I think that's kind of evidenced by the runaway free cash number that we saw on the last slide that you showed. Every year over the last 4 years, it's been going up and up and up and up. I'm guessing in part that is because of conservative forecasting, which I don't think is generally a bad principle. So I understand, like Stephanie, we'd rather be conservative than overly aggressive and find ourselves in a budget shortfall 6 months into the year. So I totally respect that. But I think, history as a town, as evidenced by this slide and the free cash slide, would show me, and if you can go to the next slide as well.
Yes, and everything you're saying, I hear. It's a very thoughtful comment. I get what you're saying. The one thing I will say, and this doesn't go against anything you're saying, it might just add some context. This excess levy number down here, when the new growth does eventually come in and we plug in what the actual was for that year, you'll see that this amount down here is obviously just basically the difference between what we're estimating and what actually occurred. That amount is then baked into this to start off the calculation for the next year. So we do capture eventually that new growth moving into the calculation for the next year, if that makes sense. So, and again, it doesn't go against everything you're saying is still legitimate. I just wanted to add context there that it's not permanently
that's
lost.
helpful.
It's just captured in the next year. So we do capture that excess levy capacity.
Okay,
But
so you true up to form that base for the following year. So that, let's just say we were $500,000 off. That $500,000 comes off of the new estimate for next year, the new baseline for next year. Is that right?
Correct.
Okay. And then on the next slide, and again, like this is all said with positivity in mind of like, we're conservative. That's a good thing, right? We don't want to spend more than we have. But also on this slide, we see local receipts budget to actual. I mean, there's a $4 or $5 million gap, at least in the last, 3 years. And again, like same concept, although I don't believe this does get rebaked into any number, because this is just sort of, right? Am I right? This doesn't
It does
get
not.
sort of,
No,
yeah.
This is different. So anything that comes in above the estimates here just goes to free cash at the end of the year.
Yeah.
This is something that we're looking at. As you can see, for a number of years, that budget was stagnant year to year. And over the last, this will be the third fiscal year that we've increased it almost $1 million. So we're looking at actuals more to see where we are. And the only thing I will point out on that actual side, the last 3 years, as I was referencing, being higher than normal, a lot of that has been through investment income. And while I would love rates to stay where they are, they're already starting to come down. And I don't see that being a forever thing. We don't have as high a balance as we did in the years where the Pine Hill 60 million we borrowed was sitting in the bank. And so that's the only thing I would highlight for that. Again, nothing you're saying is off. Like I hear you completely. It's just adding some context to that as well.
Yeah, and Alex,
Right.
if I
And that-
could just add, I think echoing Stephanie's comments, the feedback is thoughtful, and these are definitely things that we're all looking at internally.
Yeah, thank you. That's great. Listen, again, good problem to have. Budget to actual local receipts being a $4 million gap. It goes to free cash. The town does use it at some point on likely one-time expenses, which we need because we have a lot of those, year over year, and we will continue to do so even on a larger scale for buildings and schools and things like that. So I just feel like if we have a $4 million gap on local receipts, just like looking at that between last year, such and so forth, I mean, in theory, if we split the difference and we said, hey, next year, rather than 5.1 million, we're going to say it's going to be 6 million or 6.5 million, still leaving what I would consider to be a conservative buffer. We could then fund things like, some of the asks from the school that are currently kind of in limbo. We could fund things like these 2 new firefighters and not bring those out of these, one-time income or variable income sources. So I think we have the solutions to some of our problems here. From a trying to be a little bit less conservative, trying to be a little bit more reliant on what we're pretty confident is probably not going to meaningfully decrease as we go on, unless there are some things we can point our fingers to. Like your point about the investment income makes total sense, but that's separate from what we see here on local receipts. So
It's not. So just to just clarify my in case I didn't say that correctly before, in these big actual numbers right here, about 2.3 to 2.6 million dollars of this was investment income. So
okay.
still valid point, Alex. Just without those, the actuals are more along the lines of about 6.5 to 7 million.
Okay, good. That's noted as well. So again, I'm not looking for a solution or an answer. I'm more just raising the fact that I think we've got challenges and gaps here, and I think that we have some fairly, what I would consider to be conservative ways to fill those gaps based on, again, recurring funding sources, and like we see here. So I mean, great job by the town. I mean, free cash is a great thing because we need the money and we have plenty of ways to spend it. But how can we possibly, rein in that growing free cash number and help offset some of the gaps we might have on the operational side?
Thank you.
Thanks, Alex. Paul?
Yeah, and I think you may have answered this here, Stephanie, but just for clarity, because what you're showing here is the local receipts, and the largest drivers are saying are motor vehicle excise. It's not that, it's investment, right? And that's driven by some of the fortuitous timing with Pine Hill, correct?
Yes, I should say the consistent main driver is motor vehicle, but the last 2 to 3 years has been the investment income. Yes.
Yeah, which isn't sustainable going forward, right? I mean, you wouldn't expect it.
I wouldn't expect it.
Okay, fair enough.
Thanks. Margaret?
Yeah, quick question about the receipts for ambulance. What other restrictions? It sounds like if you're not using them for things around the fire department, they just can't flow into other uses. So if we weren't buying fire trucks or funding the salaries for the 2 additional headcount, what are other things that it could be used for? Or are there some restrictions we should be aware of?
So it is used for ambulance related expenses. So that's what you're asking about, correct? The
Right.
ambulance receipts, I'm
That
sorry.
it's not, that if we didn't use it for that, are there other ways to apply it, or we really have pretty limited options with how that money's used?
So, and when this account was originally set up, it was voted on by town meeting, and the spirit of it was, and how it was presented, is that the town specifically wanted to funnel these revenue receipts into a separate account. So some communities have this as part of their overall local receipts. In Westwood, it was voted at town meeting that those go into a separate account to specifically fund ambulance related expenses. So
Okay,
that
it's not a state
includes
law, how it's used.
That's a good question. It's not. Different communities treat ambulance receipts differently. It's just
Okay,
that's how
but
when town
we've made
meeting,
the choice as to how we wanted to see it used.
that's how town meeting voted the original account when it was set up a number of years ago. And I'm sorry, I don't have the date in front of me. I apologize.
No.
That it was to be funneled into a different account. It's called receipts reserved for appropriation. So anything spent from there has to go through town meeting, but it was specifically set aside to fund ambulance related expenses.
Okay, so there's some restrictions on that. Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Thanks. Christine?
You had briefly touched on a revenue stream from Brigham. Could you touch on that in a little more detail?
Yeah, sure. As much as I can, and I apologize, I don't mean to, if the board's here and has any more information, or Molly or anyone, but a CSA agreement is called a community service agreement that the town has with certain properties that may come in that are normally tax exempt. So things like hospitals, I think schools are sometimes too, I forget what else, but some properties are tax exempt, meaning that they don't pay property taxes like other commercial properties might. So the town might do agreements so that we get payments in from these properties. And this goes through our community economic development division. Our director there is great. She analyzes this, and there are annual payments based on different phases of the project. And then once the project is up and running, there is an agreement in place for however many years that they make an annual payment to the town. And anything specific on with the Brigham, I'm sorry, I'd have to get you more information. I don't remember off the top of my head what that one's been in place for a number of years, and I don't remember what the actual contract language says.
Are these, is this like a significant like increase in terms of like the scope and size of our like overall like operating budget, or?
That's so for FY27, the payment amount coming in is about $30,000.
Okay.
That will increase year over year because it's a percentage based calculation. I think it goes down each year. But that flows in through, it doesn't come in through property taxes. It comes in through general fund revenue. So sort of part of
it's
like
nominal. It's nominal. It's not like
yeah, it's nominal. Yeah, that's a good way of saying it. Yes.
Okay.
We're grateful to have it though.
Yes,
Yes,
thank
of
you.
course.
So when
No,
we
these are
do-
great. These are great agreements, and the alternative would be to get nothing. So
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
I was just wondering, like, if there were, you know, if there's like this new revenue stream of like millions of dollars, like if we should be talking about that in greater detail. It sounds
that
like
would be
not the-
fantastic, but no, that's not what this is, unfortunately.
That's not the case here. Okay.
So when University Station went in, we zoned it that we prohibited not-for-profits because we wanted the tax revenue. So when Brigham wanted to go there, they worked out an agreement with us to pay some amount of taxes moving forward. We also have the same deal with Dana-Farber for the piece of property next door. And those are clearly defined, and I don't have them in front of me. And it's been a long time since I've looked at them, but that's the basis of that. That was to protect us from an onslaught of not-for-profits.
It's not what it's called here, but just a reference point to see if anyone knows what this is. It's sort of like a pilot, which is called a
Yes.
payment in lieu of taxes. So
Yes.
Thanks, Pat. I don't see any other questions.
okay.
I think we're at
I don't even remember
the
where we
end.
were. Hold on.
I think we're at the end. We're at the end.
Yes, we're getting there,
There's
everyone.
only a few more slides.
I'm so sorry. I'm going to go through it so quickly. I'm sorry, everyone, that this is taking forever. So meals and hotel tax. This is the last funding source I'll go over for revenue. This sort of, I won't read it out, but this slide just shows you a history of how it was adopted. Again, this was another funding source that was adopted at town meeting to be put into a specific account. This one's a little different in the fact that it goes through the state. So the Department of Revenue actually collects the fees and sends us the town's portion of meals and hotel tax on a quarterly basis. So you can see from these charts that the revenue does fluctuate year to year. It's been a great year in FY26 so far, and FY25 was a great year as well. This revenue is also used for one-time expenses. The current balance in that account is 2.3 million. And the proposed funding for FY27 is 1.18 million. And that's for that additional capital article that I walked through earlier. And this traditionally is used to fund what we call additional capital projects, things that benefit the whole community. And then next steps. So just over the next few months, particularly in March, we'll continue refining estimates, particularly health insurance and any assessments. We'll also be finalizing our revenue assumptions. If anything changes on this, and I do always say that it's a good thing, right? When we start this early, you get updates along the way, but it also means that there could be changes just as things get closer to the public hearings and then to town meeting. So we'll be finalizing revenue assumptions and send any updates or changes made to the FinCom. Articles 1 and 2, which is a big one. I never have this early, but it's usually mid to late March. So I'll come back in front of you then once those are finalized and approved by the select board. And then all articles will be finalized in advance of your March FinCom public hearing, which I think is on the 25th. And that's when they'll be voted on. So again, any material changes will be brought back and sent in memos to the commission along the way. And then I'll be back to update you in even more detail. No, not this high level, but more on the articles themselves, details in March. So I'm not going to close out just yet in case I'm going to say any questions again, and then I'll keep this up in case I need to go back to a slide.
I don't see any hands. I think they asked a lot of the questions. Oh, Christine has one more.
Sorry, just one more. And you may have touched on this. Are we anticipating an override at this point?
There is no override planned for FY27. For the Maytown meeting, there is currently no article for an override on.
Okay.
Well, thank you, Stephanie, for going through everything at length and surviving our peppering of questions.
No,
the
it's
last
great.
hour. But we appreciate it.
Thank you all.
Thanks, Stephanie. You're always so great, so informative. Thank you.
I appreciate that.
So we're in the home stretch. So I'll entertain a motion about the minutes from the last meeting that Allison sent out.
Motion to approve the minutes of the prior meeting.
Second,
Second.
and then I think Allison, we have to do a roll call vote.
We do.
Because we're on Zoom.
Bill Bruce,
Yes.
Alex Yale,
Yes.
Angela Hughes,
Yes.
Chris Pareda,
Yes.
Christine Cannon,
Yes.
George Leham,
Yes.
Margaret Driscoll,
Yes.
Mike Powers,
Yes.
Paul Bamford,
Yes.
and Susan Flanagan Cahill.
Yes.
Thank you. I'm all set.
Great. Just quick update on the next few meetings, and then we'll get to the end here. So the next meeting is the 24th, is public hearing, so that'll be in person. We have the planning board coming to discuss their articles. I'd also like folks to kind of look at the list of articles, send Allison and I a note on any ones in particular you'd like to write up. I'd like to, in that meeting on the 24th, if we can, just map out who's taking what articles so that we know, well in advance of the meeting on the 25th. And then
Bill, is the meeting the 24th or the 25th?
the 24th, this is March and February, the dates are close. So our next meeting is February 24th, then we have March 10th and March 25th. So March 10th will be the school presentation, their budget, as well as we'll go through questions we have for the department heads around the budgets overall. So what we would like everyone to do is, in preparation for that, you all have the budgets out in the OneDrive. If anybody's having problems accessing it, let Allison know. But all the municipal, the school, all the budgets are out there already. Like you to start looking at it. Love you to look at all of it. If you want to focus in on one area in particular, that's fine. But I'd ask that by March 1st, you get Allison and I questions that you have on any aspects of the budget. And then that way, March 2nd, we can get that out to all the department heads so that then when they come to our meeting on the 10th, they can talk through and address the questions. And then obviously they'll take additional questions, but just a way for us to kind of funnel the questions in the absence of subcommittees this year. And so then our last meeting, well, not our last meeting is the 25th, where we do obviously our vote and go through the articles and have another public hearing. So that's kind of the plan. Allison, did I get everything right? Did I miss anything? Okay. Anything else anyone else wants to bring up?
No, all good.
Okay. I'll take a motion to end the meeting.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Then we got to do the roll call again. Sorry.
That's okay. Bill Bruce,
Yes.
Alex Yale,
Yes.
Angela Hughes,
Yes.
Chris Pareda,
Yes.
Christine Cannon,
Yes.
George Laham,
Yes.
Margaret Driscoll,
Yes.
Mike Powers,
Yes.
Paul Bamford,
Yes.
and Susan Flanagan Cahill.
Yes.
That's everyone.
Well, thank you, everyone. Appreciate all the questions and see you in 2 weeks.
Thank
Thank
you,
you.
Stephanie.
Then, bye-bye.
Thank you all for the time.